Tonight on Lowdown, we'll be sitting down with the University Health Center to talk about COVID-19 procedures. We'll talk with a student about cleaning up the burg and attend the musical performance held a couple weekends ago during Family Weekend. All this coming up next. Hello and welcome back to Lowdown, a show by the students of the University of Central Missouri in Lawrenceburg. I'm Kylie Danny. Thanks for joining us this evening as we continue to dive into all the cool things happening here at UCM. Speaking of, let's learn about what the University Health Center has to offer the students here at UCM and what new procedures are in place with the COVID-19 pandemic. Hello, we're here today with Diana Herman to talk to us about the Health Center. So, can you tell us a specific role that the Health Center has for students on campus?
Are you referencing COVID or just in general?
Just in general.
Just in general. So lots of roles. Probably the number one thing that we see students for is acute healthcare needs, which for this age group is usually things like sore throats, flu, strep throat, urinary tract infections, bronchitis. Those are the most common reasons. But then we see things that affect students in this age group too, like appendicitis, kidney infections, kidney stones, abdominal pain, headaches, some trauma. Of course, if somebody's injured badly, they're going to go to the emergency room. Yeah. But we might see them later after a car accident or after a fall. I failed to mention earlier that we do a lot of women's health. We do contraception, STD testing for men and women, and treatment, as well as education. Let's see. A lot of depression, anxiety. We see a lot of students for depression, anxiety. Probably about 1 or 2 a day. That's gone up over the last 5 years. We've always seen students for that, but I'd say there's been an increase in the amount of students that are struggling with that. So we have good providers to help with that. We've got a great team of nurses and a great team of staff over at the health center. I really like how interested they are in students and how accommodating they are to try. They really are interested in students' health and them being able to succeed in college.
How would you describe the change you've seen recently from the pandemic in your role at the health center?
Well, there's been a major change and a major shift. We saw this coming back in January and started preparing at that point in time. And as everybody knows, there's been lots of changes that have happened since January. Yes. So a lot of the mitigations that we started last February and March, some of those are still in play, and then some of that has changed since then. So about spring break time is when everything went to mainly telehealth, and most doctors' offices were not seeing patients in person. They were being screened for infectious disease. And luckily here in Warrensburg, our hospital, Western Missouri Medical Center, they quickly responded by setting up a tent for testing, and they allowed us to use it for our students, so that worked out really well. So we were able to send students through a drive-through testing site, and then they got right back to us with results, and then we managed students on campus. As things progressed, we were not seeing that many in the spring and early summer. There was a spike in July, and then another spike right after school started. As things have progressed, we have taken on doing more of a public health model, as opposed to seeing every patient, having an office visit where you come in, you see the provider. We've changed to doing a lot of it by telephone and doing where we set up a communication tool so that students could let us know if 1, they thought they had symptoms, 2, they thought they'd had exposure, or 3, they've been tested and had a positive result. Then they could contact us through the communication tool. And we got back to them. And through that, we were able to, one, if they had symptoms, send them for testing at Western Missouri without an appointment, without the cost of an appointment, and without the delay of waiting for an appointment time. So they were able to get over right away and get tested. And then we follow up with them on a routine basis to see how they're doing with their symptoms.
Do you guys still have anything face-to-face option, or is it completely online?
Yes, starting around March when everything went to virtual. Mm-hmm. But since school has started and since we've learned more about COVID, we've gotten more used to managing it mm-hmm. and feeling safer in how we manage it. We're now seeing quite a few more patients face-to-face for non-infectious disease things. So if somebody calls and they have fever, sore throat, cough, we send them to get tested before we see them at the health center. And we treat them over the phone. I mean, we're not going to, if somebody's getting sick with it, then we're going to see them. We're going to arrange for a different process. But as long as they're managing okay at home, we just keep tabs on them. We did in the beginning, we took students' thermometers because we had them available. Then we went through all the thermometers that we'd ordered ahead of time and couldn't get any more, and there were none to be had in town. Yeah. And we would take students' Tylenol or thermometers and mainly just manage through calls to check to see how they're doing. One of the questions that we ask is, are they experiencing trouble with depression or anxiety related to being in quarantine or isolation? And quite a few students say yes to that. It's been difficult for them. But for the most part, everybody's managing okay. Everybody's really been good to work with. They're always, for the most part, everybody's been really nice when we call them and forthright. And it's been a fun way to be a nurse and to communicate with the students.
Can you tell us about your specific role at the health center?
So I'm a nurse practitioner, so I do see patients, and I see that as my number one role. We didn't have a director when this all started, and we needed to have a director during this time. So I took on that role for until we do get somebody hired in that position. So I've been leading the clinical aspects of this at the health center.
Do you have any advice for students to try to stay healthy and proactive in preventing this?
Yeah, and it's the same thing you've been hearing over and over again. Socially distance, staying at least 6 feet away from others, wear a mask, wash your hands. But even more importantly, those are very important things. But as far as overall health, getting enough sleep. I think that's the hardest for all of us. It's especially hard for college students because their hours tend to be sporadic sleeping. They might not get to bed until 2 o'clock, and they might get up for a class at 7, and they know they're going to be able to take a nap. But getting regular sleep habits is really good for your immune system. It's what keeps you strong, keeps you healthy. So sleep is key. And also eating healthy. Mm-hmm. Drinking plenty and getting enough rest right now. When you're sick, staying home and not exposing others, and also not trying to overdo it. Because we're used to, in the past, I've seen college kids do it, I've seen lots of business people, they're so, I don't want to say addicted to their jobs, but they're so, they go to work every day even when they're sick. And they wear themselves out. And I have seen people get very ill from a virus because they didn't take good care of themselves and let their immune system fight the virus. So it's really important when you get the flu or when you get COVID that you rest so that your body can fight that virus. Viruses can be really mean. Yes. They don't know how much COVID affects the heart and lungs. Dr. Glover, he's our director for the University Health Center. He's the medical director for us. That just happened this year. But he's also works with all the athletes, the physician for the athletes on campus, and he's done that for years. And he's also a sports medicine physician and is very proactive in research with what needs to happen with athletes. So with all the collegiate athletes, they are being evaluated after they recover from COVID. They're putting them through a return to play exercises to make sure, and they're getting an EKG on them. They're doing some cardiac blood tests on them to make sure that they are okay to go back to their sport and to go back to that kind of strenuous activity. And I really applaud Dr. Glover for taking such a proactive role in that. So then when we have students that are in classes like scuba diving classes or intramural classes, because a lot of our students are athletes, even they're not collegiate athletes, that we can adopt some of those protocols to use for those students as well.
So can you tell us a little more how you try to keep the students to feel like they're in a safe environment whenever you guys are communicating with them?
Sure. So when you're talking about a safe environment at the health center, one of the first things that comes up is privacy and HIPAA compliance, and we are very, that's something that's at the forefront of our minds and has been for 20 years, is that it's really important to protect people's privacy. So we go to strong lengths to make sure that that happens. Then as far as the physical environment, we're doing increased cleaning now, but we've always been kind of clean fanatics, especially with flu and other contagious diseases. So we wipe down rooms with a antibacterial solution. We wipe down the tables and the doorknobs and the tabletops after patients that have infectious disease type ailments. We are using a COVID tent. Have you guys seen the COVID tent that's outside our building? So the reason for that is that people who might have infectious disease, we don't know if they have COVID or not, that the concern is that it is aerosolized or in the air. We know that it's in big droplets too, but it also has some aerosolization. And when you're doing a COVID test, you have the potential of making somebody cough or gag, and then that's more likely to aerosolize the droplet. So we have a COVID tent outside so that it's carried away in the air instead of being stuck in a room that's in the air that you can't wipe down. So that's been working out well for us, but it's not winter yet. It's not icing yet. The big windstorm that we had last week blew our tent down, broke one of the legs. We've repaired it, and we're looking for some better solutions for that. But that has worked well for us. It gives some privacy to the student, but also lets the airflow go through in a safe manner.
Do you guys have a plan in order for spring semester yet?
Pretty much to continue as we are. We're hoping, we don't know when we're going to see another surge. We saw a surge right after school started, and we made it through that, and we've gotten better at what we do, so it'll be easier the next time, I think. I'm hoping that it's not any greater surge than what we've already seen, but time will tell. I think it's going to be really important for students when they go home for Thanksgiving break that they don't take it to their families. Yeah. And so by that, the most important thing that you can do is to socially distance, to really be careful that 14 days before you go home that you haven't been around anybody that has COVID. And for the most part, when we do contact tracing, we have not found that anybody has obtained COVID in a classroom setting, because the classroom settings, everybody's remained 6 feet apart, and people are wearing masks. So COVID is being passed to people usually socially. It's usually family situations or friend situations, social settings where masks and 6 foot distancing isn't happening. So I'm glad that school stayed open. Mm-hmm. So many people are so glad to be back here. So I'm glad that the college opened, even though we were in a red zone at the time, and I was thinking, this might not be the right time to be coming back. But they did, and it's been good for a lot of students. And for the most part, people are doing what they need to do, and we've been able to continue our lives as normally as possible and dealing with COVID at the same time. And Dr. Best and the administrators that made those decisions, I think they ended up making wise decisions that were best for students and best for the Warrensburg and best for the university. So that's worked out well. I hope it continues like that. The one thing that'll change in the spring is we will have vaccine available. I'm sure we will have it available by spring. And the university may be one of the places, because we have nursing students that help with flu vaccine every year on campus. They have agreed back in the summer, the nursing faculty, that yes, they want to be available to help with doing COVID vaccine for our community. So we work closely with Johnson County Community Health. But I foresee that a lot of the COVID vaccinations, that there will be an increased surge in people wanting, and I hope there's a good surge in people wanting that vaccine. Yeah. And we're going to be prepared to help give it. So that'll be a big change in the spring.
All right. Do you have any advice for the students other than what you've already mentioned?
I think I did want to mention about contact tracing, that some students have been reluctant to name names, and I wanted to reassure them that when we ask for names, it's not, I think they have a fear that they're going to rat out their friends, or that they, and I just want them to know that the reason we ask for names is so that we can contact the person that's been exposed and let them know that they've had a potential exposure to a person positive with COVID, and that they need to quarantine for 14 days. And that quarantine is important to protect other people, and that's how we're going to keep it from spreading to everyone in our community. So that 14 days of quarantine is important. And when we call, we don't mention who the person was that exposed them. We just say that you've been named as a contact on this date, and that you need to quarantine for 14 days from this date. So it's just how contact tracing works. And I know a lot of people see that as as their liberties being infringed upon, but you've got to keep the public. This is a public health crisis, and so we're not like some countries where they're watching to see if you leave your house and put you in jail if you leave your house. It's not like that. But in order for us to be a free country, we have to abide by public health laws and rules and infectious disease science.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, and you've been very informative, so thank you.
You're welcome. I hope this works out for you. Thanks.
Hi, this is David Gildehouse with Lowdown. Today we have Riley Purvis with us to talk about Clean the Burg. Riley, could you just tell us a little about Clean the Burg?
Yeah, so Clean the Burg is a Warrensburg-wide local initiative through the Love What's Local Committee. I am the Volunteer Services graduate student, so I organize volunteer events for students. So I thought it would be a great idea to offer a Clean the Burg event here on campus and kind of get the students to feel proud to help out around their university and connect with something the whole community was doing as well. So we had our event. It was originally supposed to be September 14th. We ended up having to reschedule because of rain. So we had our event last Friday, the 18th, and we had lots of students come out, and the weather was much nicer.
So was this an event that was specifically on campus, or was it like the entire town-wide thing?
So our specific event was on campus. We pulled weeds around campus, but the Clean the Burg event was all around the community. So different organizations scheduled their own cleanup events, and then it was posted on social media. Hashtag Clean the Burg was associated with the event, and people could post their pictures of either some people like picked up trash on the highway, some people, repainted their business, stuff like that, just to beautify the community.
So how long has Clean the Burg been like a tradition?
I think it's been going on for 2 or 3 years now. It kind of started with Warrensburg Main Street. They're a downtown nonprofit, and they focus on downtown and stuff. So they started off with their Fall Day of Caring event, and they just focused on cleaning up downtown areas, planting flowers, picking up trash. And then it kind of expanded through the Love What's Local Committee to include the whole town. And I think the Love What's Local Committee is through the Chamber of Commerce. So,
for this event that just happened, where did you start and where did you end up? Like, what area did you cover?
Yeah, so we partnered with the UCM grounds crew. So we had them just show us different areas that they would like us to pull weeds at. So we started over at the Elliott Student Union. There's 2 raised kind of flower beds with trees in them, and we started over there, and that took us probably half the day. And then we kind of just moved across campus. So we did around the chapel, and then we finished off the day with doing a little bit by the rec center.
How many people ended up volunteering?
We had 25 participants total. 24 were students, and then 1 was a UCM staff member.
So how is it different this year compared to other years with like COVID-19 going on?
So this year, our office is really focusing on trying to do volunteer events that are outdoors to kind of help promote the social distancing and, just give people more space, especially while the weather is nice, and not bring them inside as much. So that's been the biggest change for us, is we've just been trying to focus more on volunteer events that we can host outdoors, so that people can, we think that more people are able to come that way and participate, because we don't have to worry as much about keeping everyone 6 feet apart in order to volunteer.
So how much in the end were you able to clean up?
We cleaned up about 5 industrial trash bag size of weeds. And I know personally I can definitely see a difference because I kind of saw the before and after. And I know that all of our participants, like pulling weeds, like it's rather like physical labor work, but it's so rewarding because you can see the difference you make immediately. So I know our participants really like that, and I know UCM grounds crew was really happy to have our help.
And for the citywide event, do you know how much trash usually gets cleaned up?
I do not. I know Mary Jane Cafe, they did highway cleanup instead of the Rotary Club. Downtown, I think they more focused on replanting different flower beds. And then I know Big Brothers and Big Sisters had a fraternity that helped them repaint their donation shelter. So it's not just focused on trash cleanup, it's kind of whatever each organization wants to do.
So if people wanted to get involved with this again, how could they do that?
Yeah, so it's hosted every fall. I would say check out the Love What's Local committee page, and then they post leading up to the event all the different organizations that are involved and what activities they are doing. So then people can get involved that way, or they can also start their own cleanup activity, whether that's raking their neighbor's leaves in their yard or just finding some way to make the community better.
What are some other events that are coming up?
So October 24th, we have, it's called Make a Difference Day. It's a National Volunteer Day. And so for that, we are also going to be hosting lots of different partners throughout Warrensburg and Johnson County. And students can get involved with that. We're starting the promotions next week for that. So if everyone looks out for that, it's another way just to get out in the community and make a difference.
Well, thank you, Riley, for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
The show today is just a series of concerts performed by the UCM Symphonic Band, the String Orchestra, the Wind Ensemble, and the UCM Marching Percussion. We're playing multiple different arrangements by many different composers. Altogether, it's just a show of music that we can put together in case we have to go into an online format, or shows that we can perform together in person. COVID impacted the concert today by not being able to be in a confined space. A lot of regulations state that you can only meet as an ensemble playing for 30 minutes, and then you have to let the air out of the room for 30 minutes. So playing outside eliminates that clause. We're able to play for longer, and it's safer to be spread out. There's more room. The only major downfall of it is the wind with the music flying away, but otherwise it's a good time. So one of the songs that we're performing is called Nettleton, which is just an old American hymn tune. In general, it's just multiple different genres of music. I know that the Wind Ensemble is playing Star Wars. The UC Marching Percussion is playing what we would for our marching band shows. So they're playing themes from like the Avengers. So all around, it's just different genres of music that we're all playing. The music is just a choice that we made based off of what can we play together in person that can blend well together. But if in case we have to go online, how can we still teach the music and play together? What if in the event that half of our rehearsal time we were online, how can we still rehearse this music together and make it sound really good for a concert? I'm actually one of the weird people in the band. I'm a drum major for the UCM marching band, so I'm always on the podium for that. My primary instrument is trombone, but I'm one of the music educators that likes to do their secondary instrument, so I'm playing bassoon for this concert. Overall, I'm a junior music education major, so I've had a little bit of dabbling with the orchestra and the marching band and everything else. I actually did A+ tutoring my senior year, and I really fell in love with music. I had a solo of my marching in the marching season, my senior year. So all those added together, plus the idea that I really do want to teach, just added, well, what do I want to teach? So music was the top pick. Every musician here has a primary instrument, whether it be like trombone or clarinet or voice or a string instrument like violin. And that's the one that you perform for recitals and stuff for your degree requirements. Secondary instruments are another instrument that you can try out, that you can perform in other ensembles. It's basically just another option for you to teach. So I'm primarily a brass player playing trombone, but not everyone that I will teach in the future will play trombone. So in order for me to give an equal education, I like the idea of playing secondary instruments like bassoon that a lot of people don't have experience on, so I'm able to teach it better for my students in the future. With my degree, I primarily want to teach middle school and high school, so beginner band all the way until they're walking down the stage for graduation. I'd like to teach concert ensembles, marching band, and jazz. For marching season, it hasn't impacted a whole lot. We just have to make sure we take precautions with wearing masks with either bandanas or with instrument masks with slits in them so we can still perform. For concert ensembles, it's reduced our rehearsal time by 60%. We normally rehearse for 50 minutes, but now we can only rehearse for 30 minutes at a time. So just chopping off down to 60% of our rehearsal time it's basically like taking 2 weeks off before every concert. So while we still try to go through it, there are some difficulties, but overall I still think it's very successful.
I hope you enjoyed that glimpse into university life here in Warrensburg. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But don't fear, the show in its entirety and individual segments can be found on our KMOS TV YouTube page. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kylie Dannett.